come once again to discuss things.
Anyway, you ready to go ahead and get started? Alright. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is Rasco of Rasco's Modern Life. Hello, Rasco.
What up? What up? What up?
Indeed. What up, indeed. Now let me just say, before we get started recording, that you, the listener, can download episodes of Geeky Gentlemen and listen to them on the go. Rasco, where can they find the link to download the episodes?
In the description below.
Indeed. And what can they do if they want to listen to older episodes of Geeky Gentlemen on the go?
Go fuck yourself.
Indeed. So, Rascal, what are we talking about this week on Geeky Gentlemen?
Argo, the legend of Iran.
Oh, man. Yeah, we're talking about Argo, the Legend of Iran. That's the subtitle that Ben Affleck left out.
Yeah, that could have actually been on there.
No, I'm really glad it's not. You know, it's funny. Have you ever read or watched Persepolis?
No.
We covered it last year on History Month, and it's this graphic novel that was translated into an animated film, and it's really interesting because they're able to perfectly copy the art style from the novel. And it's about a little girl who was born just before and grew up throughout the Iranian Revolution of 1979. And the movie Argo starts in almost the exact same way that her book starts, where she talks about the history of Iran. Mm-hmm. And, like, it used to be Persia, and then, you know, U.S. involvement and British involvement, and then a democratic socialist got in charge and nationalized the oil industry, and then the U.S. and Britain deposed him and installed a dictator and all that stuff. Yeah, that's the exact same way that Argo opens up. It's really funny. So I just found that interesting that we're back to Iran.
Can't leave.
Yep.
Literally.
Now say the name of the country for me.
What?
Say the name of the country for me. I'm just curious.
Iran?
It's not I. You didn't run anywhere.
Iran. I'm sorry.
Nah, it's cool. It's one of those things. I'll probably mess it up too. It's fine. It's just typical American thing. You can't say the name of a goddamn country. I have more of a pet peeve about it because if you say my name,
Ian.
Fuck you.
Ian. Well, I've never gotten your name wrong. I just can't get that Iran.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It just cracks me up because when you say my name, you can say it perfectly. You can use the I sound just fine, but when you try to say Iran or Iraq, no one can get it. But anyway, so Argo. What made you want to pick this?
Nothing really. Just kind of came to me, I think, when you asked me and put me on the spot what I wanted to talk about, and I just was like, oh, pick this. Ben Affleck's got a movie coming out this year. Link it that way in my head. I guess that was the connection.
You know, I love that just everybody that I have on this show puts so much thought and effort into the topics they pick. So it's like, I don't fucking know this thing. I really appreciate all the respect that is had for Geeky Gentlemen. Yeah. Anyway. It's an interesting film, and it's one of the movies that really put Ben Affleck back on the map, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a controversial subject. It is one of those situations in history where it sounds too insane to be an actual thing that happened.
Yeah.
But it's kind of neat that, reality's stranger than fiction. Anyway, I don't know. You start us off on this. I don't really know where to begin on this one.
Okay, so I've only seen this movie twice, and the first time I watched it was shortly after it came out in 2012. Or actually, no, it wouldn't have been in 2012 because it was after it actually was nominated. So I actually saw it probably in 2013. I guess I probably saw it sometime in 2013. So it's been a long time since I saw it, and when I watched it the first time, I was like, okay, yeah, that was good. But this time, I really, really liked this movie on a second viewing, and it's probably just because I've grown a lot in the however many fucking years, 3 years that it's been since then. But wow, I think this movie, this movie's really, really well directed, and this movie does a lot of little things that I love aesthetically. Like, I was reading this thing, and it's like Ben Affleck, when he shot this movie, he took the film and blew it up to make the film look like it was from the 70s. Like this movie was from the 70s almost. He wanted to kind of get that aesthetic, so he took the film and he blew it up, and then he like cut it in half and he blew that up, and like to get it like extra film grainy. And I love little things like that. Like this movie, I think, is a fucking amazingly directed movie, and I think Ben Affleck should have at least been... I think he was probably nominated for Best Director. I don't know if he was, but he should have won for Best Director.
It is a really interesting film, and I do like the 70s look that it has to it. The process that he went through to get that seems just a little tedious, and that he should have just done, shot it on digital, but whatever. But yeah, I did notice the 70s aesthetic, and then it like cuts back and forth at points between what is clearly modern cinema footage on cameras and what is, if not actual footage from the ground, certainly looked like it.
Yeah.
Like it's a really good recreation in that case. So yeah, I agree. I thought that all looked really good. It is a really fascinating idea to try to make a movie about someone pretending to make a movie and do all that.
Yeah. And I loved all of that stuff, and I appreciated all of the making of the fake movie so much more than I did the first time when I watched this.
Why?
Just because I find it so much more interesting now, that just like the behind the scenes of filmmaking, and just when it says things like, and even just tiny things when it's like Burbank Studios in LA, like I've been there, and I was like just there, and like that's really just cool. In the 3 years since I've watched this movie the first time, I've like just really gotten a lot more into filmmaking and like some of the behind the scenes stuff and the backdoor processes and things like that. So to like see them in this movie having to put together a fake movie, it was just really funny.
It's interesting that you say that, because I wanted to jump on with the whole 70s thing, because I forgot until just now for some reason. This opened with the Warner Brothers logo from the 70s. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't. Hold on.
Yeah. If you go to the very beginning of the movie, at least the version I watched, it opened with the old Warner Brothers logo from the 70s.
Oh, you're right.
It's just like a square.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really fascinating too. But
that is.
Yeah, I like the whole backdoor Hollywood kind of thing. That's just something that I always find really interesting. The ins and outs of the industry, and just how to put this. The ins and outs of the industry, the behind the scenes, the shaking hands, making deals, and talking shit to each other. That's always really fun to see. And it's heightened in a way because their lives on the line and they can't just openly tell people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a lie within a lie going on. That's really fascinating.
Yeah. They're wasting a lot of people's time, but it's for a greater good.
Right? Oh. Yeah, I do like that quite a bit about it. I guess the thing with this movie that gets me the most is they're fully aware of how crazy this is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really enjoy how everyone acknowledges this is like the worst idea ever.
Yeah.
To the point where they have a conversation. Was this really the best, worst idea you could come up with? Yes. I really like just how batshit insane this is. And there's a lot of things like that, just historically speaking, that seem crazy, and you cannot believe they worked.
The American Revolution?
That less so.
I mean, that's still pretty ridiculous. Like, but...
that less so. I mean more like how...
We don't want to pay taxes!
No, when I think of it, I think more like, the Trojan horse, which, I mean...
No, I was just about to say that, but I was like... I'm not going to say Trojan horse, but I was...
Well, like, it's a very similar... Like, and of course, there's a certain mythology aspect to the Trojan horse, and we never know if it's actually true or not, but let's just assume...
I wasn't going to say it, because I was like, yeah, he's probably going to be like, that's not a real event, and I was like,
Well, it's one of those things, it's too old to tell. Probably it was, like, a smaller thing than we've made it out to be, if anything. But just the idea of, let's hide in a horse and leave it outside the gates, and then they'll bring it in, and we'll invade the city. Like, that kind of thing.
We'll get it. They all got stoned and came up with some battle plans.
Right.
What if we were inside a horse, dude? Like...
Yeah, there's all kinds of shit like that where it's just, I cannot believe that worked, but it did. World War II has a lot of fascinating stuff like that where they just said, fuck it, we'll try anything, like the atomic bomb. Like, we all look at the comics and it's like, oh, the idea of a super soldier and yada yada yada, and it's like Captain America's origin. Well, that shit they actually tried. That's where we got meth. That's how meth became a thing, was Nazis trying to make super soldiers.
The Nazis were doing some crazy stuff.
Americans, too. You ever heard of the bat bomb?
No.
Okay, so, like, they needed to find ways to bomb Japanese cities that were more economically viable than just dropping normal bombs. Yeah. So they loaded a bomb that had like a parachute on the end of it with a bunch of bats that had been like surgically implanted with napalm. And so the bomb would drop out of the plane and then the parachute would deploy and the bomb would actually like kind of open up and a bunch of trays would be there and the bats would get out of the trays and fly around and then go take refuge in different areas in Japanese cities. And then the napalm would explode and the fucking village and shit would burn down. And they did it, and it worked, but it was just like, God, this is so fucking time-consuming, never mind. They, like, made a scale model Japanese city out in the American desert, and like, okay, this is just fucking taking forever.
Sounds like a movie that needs to be made. Next summer, Ben Affleck, Bat Bomb, the movie.
Yeah, So the whole idea of Lord of Light, which is later renamed to Argo, interesting little factoid. I did a little bit of research on this. Jack Kirby, comics god, did some of the original, what do you call that? Son of a bitch, the drawings. Storyboarding, thank you. Yeah, Jack Kirby did some of the original storyboarding for the Lord of Light film.
Ew.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating. So, this is just one of those plays where it's like, how did anyone think it would work? But more importantly, how did it actually work?
Well, see, like, it's so specific, that's why it worked. It's because it was so ridiculously specific that, like, that's how life is. You see, like, you have to get so ridiculously specific with your plans if you're trying to come across as, like, natural and real and innocent, because that's how life is. Like, no one, you can't just go in like, like, all of their ideas were so generic and stupid, but, like, by making it like a really specific, like kind of like niche type of thing where it made sense for them to need to be there to scout for the movie, and like there's a lot of things going on culturally, so it just made sense to be randomly that specific. But at the same time, you're walking a fine line between being specific and ridiculous, and it's never going to work.
And it does somehow.
And it does. And that's what I love about it. And it's so tense. And the ending of this movie is so suspenseful. It's just like, oh, God.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's the point where it just completely abandons history and goes for, you know, making it more cinematic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I watched an interview with the guy that Ben Affleck's playing, and he's like, yeah, it was smooth as silk. We walked in the airport, we were on the plane 15 minutes later.
Smooth.
Yeah, there was no last-minute thing where they had to have the guy speak the language and show storyboards, and they actually had to call the studio. No, none of that happened.
Yeah, see, I don't mind that, though, really. Like, I think it was fine, honestly. Like, you know, like, reality is flexible, right? Reality's flexible. The Steve Jobs movie, none of the stuff that happens in the Steve Jobs movie actually happened ever. But it's about, you know, capturing the spirit of the tenseness of that kind of situation, and so I don't really mind.
It's one of those things, it's this interesting line between good cinema and paying respect to what you're presenting. This movie exaggerates some things, but not in a way... It's interesting, because we talked about this with Braveheart, and we talk about this from time to time when we're talking about adapting historical event to film. Because oddly enough, it's only ever film that does this. There's never like a TV show about a historical event. I say that and I feel like I'm wrong. I'm totally wrong. There was The Tudors. I'm stupid. Anyway. But we talk about this a lot, the idea of what are you allowed to change, what are you allowed to do, and I'm trying to think if there's a good general rule, and the best I can do is, as long as what you're changing isn't insulting to the people that it's about, I think it's okay. Is that fair, do you think?
Well, like, yeah, like, I will, you see, like, if it's insulting, so here's like, okay, you know that movie Pain and Gain?
No.
It's like got like The Rock and I forget, it might have like Mark Wahlberg in it too. But that's like a movie about like a hostage situation, but it's like a comedy, I think. And like I think that like the hostages' families that were involved in that situation are like still alive today, and that movie's like a comedy and like plays the hostages and what happened to them for like comedic effect, I think. There's some kind of bullshit going on around that, and I like it's like they're like making like light of like a serious situation that happened to a family, and people might have even died. I think, I don't know. I need to know more about this before, but I just know that there was some drama about that movie. It was like a comedy, and like stuff like that. I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like, why would you adapt that to that? My thing is, you know, I think that you can change things when you're doing it to fit it into your genre better. So, like, this makes the end more suspenseful and thrilling because this is ultimately it's taking a true story and making it into a theatrical version of the story that is a suspense thriller, like that kind of movie. That's what it turns it into. So it makes sense that they would change that to fit it into that kind of story. As long as it doesn't directly demonize someone or say something directly that's offensive, I'm not going to really take an issue with it. So, I pretty much, yeah, like what you're saying is pretty accurate. And I think that also you can change things to make them fit into the type of story you're trying to tell.
That one I'm a little more shaky on, but yeah, I don't like the idea of changing things because history's dirty. History is not clean. If it were, it would be boring, and it's not. History is messy and ugly. There are no good guys and bad guys when you really get down to it. everybody's morally gray at best. And I say that, and that's a complete exaggeration. But, you know, when you really look down at it, no one is their worst moment, and no one is their best moment. So, when you do something that takes an extended look at a person in history, you owe it to that person, living or dead, to try and portray them in a way that is fair. Mm-hmm. So when something takes liberty with history, I'm okay with it. Like, you have The Crucible, the play about the Salem witch trials, and that's been adapted to film multiple times. And in that, you have people who were actually there, who were documented as being in the courts and being accused and all this other stuff. And Arthur Miller, I believe is the playwright, has an affair having occurred between two of the characters, and uses that as kind of an element of the driving force as to why one character keeps constantly pretending to be possessed and under spells by witches. And it becomes part of the driving drama and stuff. And that is, in my mind, okay, because regardless of what that person thought they were doing at that time, whether it was motivated by any kind of sex is unlikely, but whatever they were doing, they were clearly being deceitful regardless. So it's fair to cast them as deceitful in a certain light. It's fair to exaggerate that and to change those elements to better fit and make a better story. But then you have movies where they change history because they can't deal with the fact that the hero of their piece is not a good person in every single regard. A lot of things that deal with Winston Churchill do that, and it bothers me.
Really?
Yeah, Churchill was an alcoholic. Churchill was a racist. Churchill was, up until the end of World War II, the one fighting the hardest to make sure that Gandhi didn't get a goddamn say about what happened to India. So, when people present Churchill as this magnanimous, flawless individual, I'm really bothered by that. So I think when you're changing history to a degree which it becomes insulting to the people it's about, or to the truth of the person, I get really bothered by that. This changes events, but I guarantee you, even though the dude says it went as smooth as silk, I bet you dollars to donuts his heart was pounding like a rock in his chest the entire way through that airport. Yeah. And so if the what we see on film of the cop cars and the confrontation and all this stuff captures in you that insane tense feeling, I feel that's fair to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about trying to capture the spirit of what happened, and so I think that also kind of accounts for what you're saying when you can change. If someone was deceitful and you changed what they did, but they were still ultimately deceitful in your changed story, you're capturing the spirit of what that person was at that time. So again, like, I think it's obviously you can't go too far, but it is about like making sure that you're working within the realms of reality and you're trying to bring out things that were actually occurring, and maybe you have to heighten it because you have to heighten that emotional, I guess, element of the film for the audience that isn't that person, but they need to see it how that person probably felt it in the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's interesting to see how that's changed in this. The one thing I don't like about what it's changing, and maybe it's just because it's not very clear with its message, the way the film presents itself is the CIA is like 95% responsible for everything that's done here. But they can't take credit for it, so the credit is given entirely to the Canadians. In reality, it appears that the Canadians did probably 70% of saving these people's lives.
Or so they tell us.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like it's really vague about whether or not it's being coy with how much credit Canada really deserves and how much credit should actually go to the CIA. Or if they're right and the CIA did 90% of it and Canada just played guest house. And I doubt it's either or. There's probably some kind of middle ground here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that interesting that it's kind of playing footsie with the idea. And then they add things they add like characters that weren't involved or existent at all. Like the Hollywood producer, the one that comes up with the Argo fuck yourself, he didn't exist.
I like
but the phrase Argo fuck yourself was part of it, though it's given a different origin. Stuff like that. And that's honestly fine, because it's almost more a film about Hollywood than it is about Iran.
Yeah, no, this is one of those movies where, like, it's kind of like a movie that is kind of about movies, the same way, like, Inception is.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a movie that's kind of got, like, a metatextual level of, like, movie making, but this is more literal because they're literally in Hollywood, and they're, like, actually making things. And the whole pulling off of this big scheme, getting all these moving parts to work, it's kind of like a metaphor for filmmaking. To pull off like a masterpiece, to pull off such like a masterpiece plan is the same way like someone like Kubrick would have to pull off a movie like The Shining or 2001. So it's like a crazy scheme that you have to play out with all these moving parts and individuals and people, and you have to have everyone has to be doing, and they have to know their shit too. And that's why I love the payoff of that, where that guy like really sells the storyboard to them, and he like really starts explaining and he gets into his character. I just like that because like he had to become a character. He had to become an actor. That's cool. And Ben Affleck is kind of a director in the movie when he's like talking about like, what's your name? What's your birthday? What's your birthday? What's your birthday? Shoot him, he's a spy. I just love that scene.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And it's fun to see that metatextual stuff come in. I always really enjoy stuff like that, where it's a metaphor for everything. And being someone that has made movies, you do feel really stressed out, and you get, like, to the point where you're yelling at each other over stupid shit. Like, I remember when Bobby and I were making our movie, there was a scene where, like, we have a fake newscast in it, right? Yeah. And we needed to do an over-the-shoulder graphic. You know what those are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we needed an image to come up over the anchor's shoulder. Yeah. And he was on a blue screen, and there was, digital background behind him. So I looked into it, and I was researching it a bit, just watched a couple news channels, and all of them had the graphic in front of the anchor. So that if, like, he waved his hand, it would go behind the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bobby saw me put that there. And he's like, no, put it behind him. I'm like, no, actually, I looked it up, and it's always in front of them. And he's like, yeah, but it'd look better behind him. And we got into, like, a half-hour argument over what layer to put this goddamn picture on that's on screen for, like, 5 fucking seconds. And it's just, you get, like, so stressed out over the dumbest shit.
I want everyone to see what my hand looks like when I raise it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just the stupidest fucking thing. It's just tensions through the roof. And so, it is a really apt thing to put what necessarily had to be an incredibly tense situation into something that is a meta-commentary for something that is a very stressful situation in day-to-day life. We've all heard the tape of Christian Bale yelling at the DP. And honestly, fuck that guy. What was he doing?
No! Shut up! No!
Oh.
Are you a professional?
No, I mean, seriously, though. Who the fuck does that? Who walks through a scene and fucks with a light in the middle of shooting?
What the fuck? Are you two walking with the light? That's such a fucking funny team.
It is. And Christian Bale, like, listened to it, and he, like, that's the thing. It's like, it's so stressful that you're not even yourself when you're doing that shit. Because Christian Bale listens back to that tape, it's like, what the fuck? The dude was just walking through the scene. I mean, yeah, he shouldn't have done that, but Jesus Christ, what was I thinking? To get an idea of how pissed off Christian Bale was, Christian Bale's a method actor.
Yeah.
So that guy pissed him off enough that he broke character on set. Just, damn. So yeah, I think that was a really... I think Ben Affleck was kind of commenting on filmmaking.
No, see, here's the thing. Wait, hold on 1 second about... 1 second about that Christian Bale. Like, he wasn't breaking character. That was John Connor going off on him. That's what was going on
with
there.
An English accent.
As John Connor.
With an English accent. No, but I think that's maybe part of why this movie did so well with the Academy.
Yeah.
Is because the Academy is such a circle jerk club.
Meta commentary.
Well, no, they're just like, oh yes, this is about filmmaking, and it takes heroes to make films, and just, the Academy are so in love with themselves, and it's always the same fucking 6 kind of movies that win every year anyway. But
it's brave,
It's so weird. We talk about, because we did Braveheart, that one. We just did Titanic. That's going up on Thursday. That won Academy Awards. Like every year, there's some period piece or biopic, and it always wins a goddamn Academy Award. Why?
Because
what, sci-fi can't win an Academy Award?
Well, Arrival is might get nominated for some stuff.
I have no idea what that movie's about. They are marketing that in the weirdest way.
Oh, well, I'll just tell you, you need to go see that movie. I'll just say that. Like, you should probably really try to go see that movie while it's in theaters, because it's maybe really good. It's like, I've seen it. It's crazy. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to tip you off in any way.
Okay.
Just an important movie of this year, I think.
Fair enough. Yeah, but I like the idea that Affleck is communicating with that, and I like that it's not subtle.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me being annoyed with subtleness. I just like things that are really apparent, slap you in the face, just fucking get the message already.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a kind of thing that people do that I like. Where they don't even try to be subtle, they're just very in your face about it. So I like that aspect of it. Okay, what else can we talk about? You're in charge of the conversation today.
Let's talk about... We kind of already talked about Ben Affleck, and I talked about his directing, but like I was saying, this is one of those movies where it could have been a snooze fest until the very end if you didn't have a director that like really is able to direct the scenes with a really nice flow and a really nice kind of like oomph. But kind of like all the scenes have just like a really nice oomph to them sometimes. Like they do really cool camera. He does like really cool camera movements where like he gets out of a car and the camera like pans up to his head and then like cuts really hard to the right and like picks up the other 2 people getting out of the other side of the car, and then like pulls back really fast, and you see them all, and like it's just really cool, like shots like that. That like the whole movie has like a really nice flow to it from the very beginning, and all of
there's like every shot, it always feels very claustrophobic. There are very few shots where it's wide open spaces, and more so. Very, very few of those shots are not just crowds of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, once you get to Iran, it's just so claustrophobic and makes it feel so much more intense.
And the sound design is really good, too. Like, it's really, like, bassy, and, like, every time you're, like, in the crowds, it's just, like, this really big, loud swell, and it's, like, really different than, like, I've seen movies where, like, the sound design just isn't on point as it needs to be, and also the extras are really good, too. I've seen some, like, one thing I'll say about Braveheart, I don't think some of the extras are very good in the movie Braveheart. In this movie, the extras are all really good. All the people rioting are really fucking crazy.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, that scene where they drive the van through the crowd. That's just... What would make him think that was the right thing to do at that time? What made that seem like a good idea?
Forward.
Yep. That was crazy. Just everything about that felt so intense. Like, I love the scene when they're in the bazaar and the lady takes the picture of the guy.
Yeah, and he just, like, flips his shit. He just goes crazy.
Yeah, and it's just... You really feel like you're walking on eggshells the whole time. It does a really good job.
Yeah.
Nothing in that's shot in Iran feels safe.
Yeah, and
ever.
That's something about being in other countries. You know, it's really weird when you go to another country and you stop and you think, like, okay, my like human rights as I know them will not apply while I'm in this other country. Like, it's gonna be different. And, like, not that, like, I need to be afraid, but I just have to understand that, like, I literally, I have a different relationship to the government of this country than I do to the one of my own. And, like, just to know that, it's so strange when you go to another country and you get that feeling when it's just, like, to see, like, what it's like over there for them, especially in that time of such, like, tension. Mm-hmm. It's just so scary.
Yeah. And, go ahead.
And all that tension just is lifted as soon as you just literally lift off. And as soon as they're in the air, and they get that, and they get offered the alcoholic beverages, they're just like, oh my god, we're fine now. It's literally just such a slight difference in your circumstance dictates what kind of, you know, utter turmoil you might be subjected to.
Yep. I like that aspect of it. I also like that, you know, it's kind of silly, but you can't help but cheer along with them a little bit when they are announced that they're in Syrian airspace. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's kind of like, really, they all started crying and cheering and hugging each other on the airplane? No one else on the airplane thought that was a little weird?
Well, see, I actually looked at some of the people in the scenes, and there's just, like, one old guy who is looking at them. He's like, what the hell are these people happy about? Like, oh, white people. Just white people things. Oh, this is how white people act on airplanes, I guess. And it was really funny, too, because I'm watching this night, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, see, people smoked back then on airplanes. Like, that's horrible. And then the camera pans to show Ben Affleck in the corner smoking, and I'm like, oh, he's that douchebag. He's that guy smoking on the airplane.
That was a normal thing back then. I remember, I've been on airplanes that have ashtrays still.
Yeah.
You know, you're not allowed to smoke, but a lot of planes still have ashtrays, oddly enough. Yeah. I like that everyone's smoking constantly.
Yeah.
That's something that they tend not to show in historical movies enough.
Yeah, I'll say this. I love, like, people smoking in movies. Like, I just love, like...
It looks so fucking cool.
Yeah, it just adds such an ambiance to every scene when someone's just smoking on a cigarette. It just gives a different kind of, like, feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's just, it's a neat aesthetic. Yeah. Anyway, all that being said, one thing I kind of wish we got to see, though I do think Affleck handles it well, I really wish we got Jimmy Carter in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted an actor to play Jimmy Carter. Just because.
JC!
Yeah, I like Jimmy. Yeah. Oh, man, we could have talked about that for History Month. That'd have been fun. Anyway. Yeah, I like when we get to see actors play former presidents.
Yeah.
I just would have liked to see someone play Jimmy Carter. That being said, using actual news footage from the time and all that stuff, it works too, but I just wish Jimmy Carter would have been in the movie. Reasons.
Because he's Jimmy Carter.
What's weird to me is Charlize Theron playing Ben Affleck's wife at the very end of this movie.
Oh, no. It's Piper Chapman from Orange is the New Black.
That is like such a nothing part for an actress that actually is recognizable.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
It's crazy though. Like, I was just like, holy shit, that's Piper Chapman. I was just like, it took me by surprise.
Yeah, it's such a random part for her. And like she only has one shot in the whole fucking movie.
Does she even have dialogue? Does she have one line?
I think she says like one thing to him.
You know what? I appreciated it though.
I guess it's that Nolan thing of trying to cast a huge A-list cast for every little part. I don't know. And I guess she's not an A-lister, but still, she's like a recognizable actress that people have heard of, and she's just there to be there.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else, man? Keep us going. We got 20 more minutes-ish.
What have we not talked about in different areas of this film?
Score?
Oh, score. Okay, score.
Go first.
So there's a lot of. It's kind of got a really typical, and I don't want to say typical in a bad way. It's got like a very kind of obvious like Oscar type score for like this kind of movie, and it actually takes you by surprise almost. Because, like, especially that music cue when they, like, finally lift off and it's like, happy music, they made it! I'm like, okay. that was so tense. This music doesn't really fit, but, like, okay. It was weird. Like, I don't know. How do you feel about it? Because you seem like you disagree.
I don't know. It's just, I was very unsurprised by any of the choices in the score. A lot of it... There's this problem with scores in Hollywood where they use filler music now.
Yeah.
And so a director will get used to the filler music that's probably already been copywritten. Righted. God, it sounds so weird. Righted is the proper pronunciation, but it sounds dumb.
Copyrighted.
Yeah. Anyway, music's already been copywritten.
Iran.
Yeah. Music's already been copywritten, so they have to make something else, but the director wants to keep the music that they've been hearing and associating with the scene. Yeah. So they'll just tell the composer to just make something that sounds identical, but it's different enough that they can't get sued.
Yeah, this movie sounds like Home Alone. It sounds like the emotional music cues in Home Alone.
Yeah, so like that's probably what happened is they used a bunch of filler music, and then Affleck told the composers just try to match it, and composers fucking hate that.
Yeah.
So, if any Hollywood directors are listening, don't do that shit. Anyway.
Don't do that shit!
So yeah, I was very unaffected. A lot of music in movies now just passes you by because a lot of it just sounds the same, so you're used to all of it.
Yeah, I'll say
and that's
that. Like,
unfortunate.
It's not the kind of score that really wants you to notice it. It's just kind of there to like heighten some of the mood. Whereas like there are other scores that do that as well, but you also definitely notice them. I think of like Interstellar and like most of Hans Zimmer's stuff, especially like the Dark Knight stuff. It adds to the ambiance and the mood, but it's also there to be noticed in a way that like this is kind of just there to add to the mood, but it's not really there to be noticed.
Yeah, there's no point at which the music can swell and take over.
Yeah.
And I mean that might happen, but importantly, we can't think of it. So none of the music is memorable enough to stick onto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that with a lot of things where I'm like, I really like it when they let the composer do the composer's job and really leave you with something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's been my biggest problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I would tend to agree with that as well.
What's his name? The channel Every Frame of Painting did a really interesting video on the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has like no original scores that like really stick with people. And so he went and did interviews with people, or just, man on the streets basically, with people asking them to do like to hum the themes from famous movies. He's like, "Can you do Star Wars?" And they're like, "Ba ba 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 ba." How about Harry Potter? Dun 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 dun. Now, do you like Marvel movies? Oh yeah, I love all the Marvel movies. Can you hum a song from any of them? And people are like, shit, because they can't do it.
See, I can a few. There's a few from the Marvel movies that have stuck with me.
I can recognize the one from the first Captain America, that's it, but I cannot hum it to you.
I can do, like, Avengers. There's, like, a tiny... Because Guardians of the Galaxy has a soundtrack, so it doesn't have a lot of score, but there is a little bit of score at the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy that I think is really awesome when, like, he actually says, like, "We're the Guardians of the Galaxy, bitch." And I can hum that, and then I can also hum... I can't hum it because I haven't seen this movie enough. And you should typically actually be able to hum a score after you've seen it the first time, but it's a really complicated score. But Doctor Strange is a pretty cool score. But, yeah, I would tend to agree with that. The Marvel movies do have kind of an issue there where their scores aren't very recognizable, but...
Yeah, and so this is also reflective of that, of just the Hollywood blasé-ness. What do you think is your favorite scene?
My favorite scene in the movie? I really like I said, I really did like the scene, and this was a really short scene, so I'm going to say another one besides this one, but I just want to mention this one. I really did like the scene where, like I said, he's kind of just going around the circle asking people questions about their identities that they're supposed to know, like the back of their hand. I really like that scene because it just kind of, like, gets across, like, how serious this is and how, like, literally you have to know who you are if you're going to be this person. You have to know who you are better than they are going to know you. And, like, it's you just really have to know who your persona is. And I just think that's really cool. But one of my other favorite scenes is just when they start, like, gathering up all the people at that, like, or they start, like, go to that Hollywood party to have, like, the script read.
I love that one.
I love that scene. That just like the whole entire, and then also when it starts like cross editing with other stuff, and then cutting back and forth to that, and I just like that whole section of that movie is really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That scene's great. I like when they're going through scripts.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Nah, that one sucks. It doesn't matter if it sucks. We're not actually making it.
As well as it's a Western."
Yeah, like I love that they're like actually looking for a good script specifically not to make.
Yeah, because it's funny because like that's like they're making it like they would make a movie. And it's really funny because like they simultaneously like know that it's not going to happen, but it has to be authentic.
What's really interesting is the original writer of the script, Lord of Light, still wants to get that movie made.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's crazy. You know,
I kind of feel bad for him because they did all this stuff. They announced that they're going to actually make a movie and all this stuff, and he probably got like really excited for it.
Yeah.
And then like they just revealed, oh, it was all a Canadian plot to save the Iranian hostages. And he's like, well, I'm upset, but I can't be upset out loud because lives were saved.
Those damn Canadians.
Right? So like he probably feels like a dick even though he knows he shouldn't.
Yeah. You know, let's give that guy another chance. Let him write another film.
I'm sure he's written other stuff. He just still wants Lord of Light to be made.
Well,
to be fair, Jack Kirby's visuals for it were fucking awesome, so if that could happen, that'd be great.
Well, let's give him a chance.
Yeah. For me, yeah, I was gonna pick the whole cast reading scene too, but just to be different. It's pretty brief, but I really like where they go to the hostages that are actually like under guard and stuff, and they like wake them up in the middle of the night and put bags on their heads and line them up to be shot.
Yeah.
And they give the order, and all the firing pins just click.
Yeah. It's great.
And you just, even though you can't see the actors' faces, it's such a great performance of physical body language. Just the way each actor in that scene completely reacts very, very differently is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think, I think one of Ben Affleck's strengths is that, like, I think he really gets, like, the little tiny nuances to make a scene great. And, like, how you can really take a scene, and if you have some inspiration as to what you exactly want to convey, you can really work. So, like, he picked very specific movies from the 70s to, like, copy the way he directed scenes for. So, like, that scene where he, like, in some of the first scenes with Bryan Cranston in it, where they're, like, walking through an office. Mm-hmm. It's a really crowded, cluttered office. I forget what movie it was, but it said that, like, he took inspiration from a very specific movie when it came to filming that specific scene, and little things like that where it's like, well, if you have a plan like that, you can really just give a scene, like, an amount of energy to it with the little details, and that's captured in, like, just the way he's directing those people there to react to those firing pins, because you're not even ready for the fact that they didn't die there when it happens. Yep.
It's interesting that you say that, because Tarantino does the same thing a lot, where it's not even subtle. He will take entire sequences from other movies and do them exactly on film. But it's so not subtle that it's obviously tribute.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same thing that we get here, the way certain scenes are directed, and it's meant to feel like a 70s movie. 70s were an odd time for film. There are good movies from the 70s, but not many. Those are kind of far and few between. It's mostly the end of the 70s, too. That's weird. Just random thought, sorry.
Alright.
I don't know, it's weird because you look at films from the 60s and they look pretty clean. Then you look at films from the 80s, and they're pretty clean. 70s, I don't know, did like all film just get like grainy as shit for some reason? Like, what happened?
I don't know, it's just kind of the way things were, and I kind of dig it.
I don't know. I think it's probably something to do with the coloring process.
Yeah.
Anyway. Worst scene for you.
Worst scene. Oh, this is gonna be hard. This isn't a movie that anything really sticks out as a worst scene. I don't know. Do you have one in mind?
I didn't care for when they decided to scrap the plan at the last possible minute.
Yeah, that's fair.
It was already dramatic enough. I felt like that amount of drama wasn't needed.
That's totally fair. In fact, I'll double with you on that.
It just seemed it seemed too unnecessary at that point, and that was one of the things that was changed as well. So that's a change that just felt unnecessary.
I'll agree with that 100%. Actually, if that didn't actually happen, that's kind of a double entendre. So yeah, I'll agree with you.
Okay. All right. Well, shit. We need like 5 more minutes, Resco. This is the hard part about doing episodes just 2 people.
Yeah. We had this. Come on, let's conjure up a third with our brain. I'll point out this. Scott McNairy. I think that's... Hold on. Yeah, Scott McNairy is the actor who... Or his name is Scoot McNairy, I think. I'm looking at his name. He's the guy with the mustache and the glasses in this movie. That, like, has to show them the storyboards and explain the whole process.
That
guy. He is the guy who loses his legs in BVS, and I think he maybe has some friendship with
Ben Affleck,
or maybe even Chris Terrio.
That's funny. So as long as they're working, he'll be working.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just because I never get to mention it, I fucking love John Goodman.
Yeah, John Goodman's really good, and he's perfect in this movie.
John Goodman is a good man. I fucking love John Goodman. He's so much fun in everything he does. He's one of those actors who, if he's in it, I'll watch it, for the most part.
Yeah.
Only thing with John Goodman that I haven't watched is Roseanne, just because I've never, caught it, you know?
Let's put John Goodman in Batman.
You know, it's been years, but I heard a really interesting suggestion for voice casting one of the DC animated movies.
What?
It was for John Goodman to play Superman.
What the heck?
Not in costume, just voice acting.
That's kind of weird.
And I'm like, I could see it. Like, when they said it, it was funny because, when they said it, they were like, oh yeah, John Goodman should play Superman. I was like, what the fuck? No! You don't want to see John Goodman in a Superman outfit. And they're like, no, voice acting. I'm like, oh, okay, then yeah. But no, not in fucking... Never imagine John Goodman in a skin-tight Superman outfit. That's terrible.
I love that this movie also has Bryan Cranston. I love Bryan Cranston. He's one of the greatest.
Yeah. It's weird. After Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston was supposed to be in, everything and just be an amazing actor. And then, Godzilla happened, and we all just got disillusioned with him very quickly.
Wait, why?
I don't know, just because, he wasn't in much of Godzilla, and so everyone was disappointed, and he hasn't been in a lot since.
Yeah, that's fair. Bryan Cranston is just awesome, though. I have no doubt that we're going to see more amazing stuff with Bryan Cranston in it just down the road. Bryan Cranston's got to have good stuff left in him, and I don't know. I like him in all of his... Every time there's just a little part with Bryan Cranston, and I always appreciate it. Like in the movie Drive, Bryan Cranston's in that movie, and he's awesome in that movie.
Bryan Cranston looks completely different with hair and without hair.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That is a completely different dude when he shaves his head.
Yeah. He's a total badass with a bald head.
Oh, he's unrecognizable. It's insane. Yeah, I guess. Bryan Cranston's cool. Ben Affleck's pretty good in this. Maybe, nah, never mind. Stupid point. I'm pretty sure the guy from Criminal Minds is in this as one of the hostages. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He plays the really young guy on Criminal Minds.
I really like Victor
right.
Garber, who is the guy, I think he's the French ambassador or whatever. Or not French, it was Canadian.
Canadian?
Yeah, I don't know why I said French.
It's weird because he was in Titanic too.
Yeah, he was. Double.
And then he's in Arrow.
Yeah, he's in Arrow and Flash.
Oh, Flash, yeah. Legends of Tomorrow, whatever.
Legends of Tomorrow, the Arrowverse. He
really dropped. He went from being in an Academy Award nominated films to being in fucking CW-verse. What the hell happened to his career?
Brandon Routh had a pretty rocky career too.
Well, I mean, when you start with Superman Returns and then do Dylan Dog, which I like Dylan Dog for what it is, but it's not a good movie.
And he did Crooked Arrows,
and then to do
Cross movie,
and then to have just a walk-on part in Scott Pilgrim.
But
is anyone really
Scott Pilgrim though?
He is, but it's such a minor part, and that's the best thing he did since Superman Returns. Is anyone surprised he's on the CW? I don't know. I find it strange that dude's on the CW show. Wow, you were in Academy Award nominated films, and now you're on the CW. Why? What happened? It's not like he was on Academy Award nominated films forever ago. Like, I could see if he was in Titanic and then nothing and then the CW. It's that he was in Titanic and then he was in other movies and then he was in this in 2012 and now he's on the CW.
Maybe he'll be in the Ben Affleck Batman movie.
That'd be weird. All the fan fictioners would go crazy. Okay. Well, we are now thoroughly done stretching, unless you had anything else you wanted to discuss.
Not really.
Alright, cool. What's your rating for Argo?
I'll give Argo... You know, I give this rating so fucking much, but, like, it's really, you know, it's how I feel. This is, for me, this is a 4 out of 5. Argo, fuck yourselves.
Okay. Actually, I'm gonna go higher than you because I don't have very many complaints. It's got a very mediocre score, which is whatever. It's just mediocre. It's not that big a deal. And it's got, like, it changes one or two things just a little more than I feel it needs to for the sake of the story. So, yeah, I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. Smoking on airplanes. Anyway. Next week on Geeky Gentlemen, we will have started off not History Month, Holiday Month.
Oh,
it'll be
boy, gee willikers!
Yeah, it'll be the first episode of Geeky Gentlemen in Holiday Month, so we'll be discussing, God help us all, Jim Carrey's The Grinch.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Yep. So yeah, we'll be doing that next time. Hope you join us for that episode. Until next time, everyone, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Grinch!
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.